Hi, everybody. We're here with Bill Woessner and Eileen Poeter. They're the authors of the first book that we're releasing on the Groundwater project. They're very welcome, and I'd like to introduce you. Both are emeritus professors, and I'll leave to them to introduce themselves to you guys. Please, Eileen first.
Yeah, I'm emeritus professor from Colorado School of Mines in Colorado, near Denver in the United States. And I taught groundwater engineering there for a few decades.
Very good. You, Bill?
Yeah, I'm Bill Woessner, and I'm out here in Montana in the United States. I taught at the University of Montana for 33 years, and I'm an emeritus Regents Professor of Hydrogeology in the University of Montana.
That's very good. That's very good. So you guys are coming to download the books. You know that you're talking or you're seeing a very, very high level people producing the best books that you can have, and it's for free. So it's not really worth what you pay for. It's way better than that, because you're gonna get something that is so high level and you have to pay nothing for that. This is a very, very good initiative, and you have to help us tell your friends to download our books, okay? So you two, how do you get to know each other, and how the idea of co-authoring a book came along?
I was thinking about that, and I was looking back, and Eileen, I think it was in Prague in 1990 that I may have first met you, which was 30 years ago. And since then, you know, we've interacted through the Geological Society of America and through the International Groundwater Modeling Center that you headed for a while there at Colorado School of Mines. And it's been a good professional relationship for all those years.
Yes, I had forgotten about Prague, but I believe you're right. And so we had contact every now and then just recently, I guess it was around the end of February, we realized from the Groundwater Project that we needed books about the basics, because there were lots of people out there that wanted to write about advanced materials, and that was great, but it didn't seem to be all that useful if they didn't have some books about the basic principles to read first. And so we needed to pull that together, and Bill volunteered to take the lead on that, and he just did an amazing job. So we worked real hard for quite a few months, but it came out very well. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, it was very much a team effort. I mean, you know, we would write and we would read, and then we would change things, and we would make figures, and we would change the figures, and we were very open to and freely open to the process of creating this work.
Yes, I've seen it. I loved it. Really, it's a very good book, and I think it's going to be a success. That's what I think about the book, because it covers the basics, right? It covers very well, you know, in detail, and you have the exercise. So your book is supposed to offer the basics of groundwater, right? What is the target public that you, in a broader sense, who you intend to reach?
I think that this book in particular, it presents the basic properties and principles of groundwater flow, but it does have a lot of equations in it, which perhaps your everyday person that's not interested in pursuing groundwater as a career might not be interested in. So it's more for the audience who would like to go on to do some sort of earth science work that might involve groundwater, not necessarily a groundwater hydrologist, but something that would be related to that.
Yeah, I think it provides a strong foundation, but it's progressive. I mean, it's really, I think, designed for the students at multiple levels, so that they can basically understand the principles and fundamentals, but then also build on that to other concepts and eventually into some of the mathematics, which they need to know something about.
Yes.
Yes, I see that. I read the book, but may I read parts of the book independently? Or like one session depends on the other? I have to read the whole pack, or I can survive with parts of it, like a book that I use as a reference. What do you think?
You could skip some parts. We have things called boxes. So as you're reading through the book, there will be places where it'll say, this is discussed in more detail in this box. And you can click on that and go to the box and get a lot more detail. But the book is complete without reading the boxes. It makes sense. It wouldn't rely on things that you didn't see if you hadn't read the box. And there's some sections that a person could skip over if they felt that it was something that was more complex and they were interested in, and move on towards the end of the book. But if they wanted to do groundwater work, I think they would want to stop and read those sections.
Yeah, I think it's basically designed to follow, one section follows the next, and it builds on the information that's originally introduced, all the way back from just how porous media works and what it is, into how groundwater actually occurs and moves through the system. So conceptually, yes, you could stop and say, I want to read about Darcy's Law, and you could pick up the section on Darcy's Law, and you could certainly read about Darcy's Law. But I think that as a fundamental sort of basic book, that it's hopefully the idea that it's sort of a progression of going from the beginning and working along and building on each different section.
Yes, I agree. And it's from my experience, it's an enjoyable reading. You know, although it's the basics, but you have lots of illustrations. Talking about illustrations, you know, like groundwater knowledge is a science that designed to be used in the field, basically, right? How do you think this was achieved through the illustrations that you've done? Because the illustrations are so good in the book.
Well, I think that the illustrations are designed to show what you're reading about. I mean, to illustrate what you're reading about. So that's important. And I think we made an effort also to make the captions fairly detailed, so they almost stand alone. So you could look at the figure and you could read the caption and basically get the concepts that are being presented in that portion of the book. And we did a lot of work on figures, and most of them all are original. And the good news is that means that I think the professors, the students, those who want to use those figures, as long as it's non-commercial, they're going to be able to do that. If they want to put it into a student report or they want to use it in their classes for teaching, that's the whole idea. It's educational material which is available.
It's very good. About you, Eileen, I know you work hard for these illustrations as well.
No, I agree with what Bill said about that. I don't really have more to say about that. I do want to mention, though, that there are professors that are very excited about having this book about the basics come out for their basic groundwater hydrology class, because they were feeling uncomfortable asking their students to buy books that cost a few $100s. So very pleased to have this information online at no charge to the students.
Yeah, I agree. I think this what Bill just mentioned, like having the captions, you know, like the illustrations like a standalone. This is quite modern way of putting illustrations, because you know, when you have an illustration, it's the same. The first thing you look at a page of the book, right? Because you know, it has the colors, it has the structure, and you can try to understand from the figures, and you can go only in the figures from the book, and you can learn only by reading the captions and watching the figures. That's quite a nice finishing that you had there. Congrats, guys. Very good. Very good. I have one question for you. May I survive the book without knowing differential equations?
I should let Eileen answer that, but I have my answer too, so go ahead.
Well, I'm sure you will survive. We tried to explain the differential equations in detail, leading people through with diagrams and so on, so that they can understand what the meaning of the equation was, whether or not they're versed in differential equations from a math course or can solve differential equations, that they would at least understand what the symbols represented and what the equations were telling them.
Yeah, I always would tell my students that if they couldn't read a differential equation, they missed part of the text, you know, because it was telling them something, right? And so I think that you can well survive with the differential equations the way that they've been presented in the text. I think it's extremely important that a student can look at an equation and not run away from it, but actually look at it and understand what it's trying to tell them. If, for example, it might be telling them, you know, the water levels in this groundwater system this description we're going to tell you now, the water levels aren't changing, and everywhere the hydraulic transmission properties are the same. And so that's the setting from which you're beginning And now we're going to talk about how that groundwater system works. But that's done with a differential equation. And it's basically you have to understand enough. And I think that we do a pretty good job of trying to start from the basics and work through that we're not solving differential equations in a way in which they're complicated and we're using transforms and all kinds of things. We're basically explaining how they are used in groundwater hydraulics.
That's quite true. Like the concepts are clear, right? That's very important, because people are a bit afraid of, because you put it very well. You don't have to solve the differential equations. You just have to understand how it worked, right? So you can have a good understanding of the groundwater system. That's quite important. It's very good.
And these things we call governing equations, they're trying to explain the basic underlying conditions that the groundwater system is under that you're trying to study. And so it's something that I think we do a good job of trying to lay out in a very clear and simple way.
Totally agree. You, Eileen, you agree too?
Yes.
It's very true, very true. One question is, may I suggest to any professor to adopt the book if they want to? And are there any strings attached? Or is just plug and play? They get a book, they use it, the students get the exercises, that easy?
I hope so.
Yeah, it's easy. They just have to provide the web link on their syllabus and have the students go to the website and download the book. No strings attached. And there are exercise. I think you asked whether there are exercises that can be used to help the students understand when they're reading the book.
Yes. Well, that's a point that I have. What about the exercises? Right? If someone is trying to work with the exercises, and what if they have trouble with them? Are there tutorials or the exercises are developed in the book? Could you tell?
Yeah,
them?
they call Eileen. They email Eileen. No, but the good news is that of course we have solutions. So not only is the problem given that the student can work on independently, come up with their solution, and then they can check the answers, right? I mean, they can then see how we set out how the problem should have been done, and they can learn from that even if they're not in the classroom. But I think that's another plus to the book, is that you don't have to contact somebody to say, well, now where did I go wrong? Or why did I got the right answer, but I got it a different way. Well, how did they do it? And so I think it's a good learning tool. And I think that will make the book very useful.
I totally agree.
Yeah, there's not much to add to that. They can work the problems and go right to the solution and see how we did it and have the answer.
It's important to tell everybody that this is not, the book doesn't offer only the answer. It offers the solution, right? So you can go through the solution, you can read. I've read through them. They're very well detailed. It's a good learning tool. Congrats. That's very, very good. What about the boxes? What are the boxes if people are interested in? You mentioned, Eileen, but can you go into detail about the boxes? That's
where we put a lot more information. We'll discuss something in a paragraph or two in the main text, and then we'll refer to the box, and they click on that. It's all built into the book, so they don't have to download anything extra to get the box, and read more detail about it if they're interested, but not necessary to understand the rest of the book. If they don't want to go to the box, they can continue down the book and it will all make sense to them.
But an example would be we have a box on how to determine hydraulic conductivity, a transmission property of the porous media. And in that box, it talks about methodologies. This is how you do it. These are equations that you can use to compute this. These are methods you can use in the field. And so those are quite interesting and quite valuable. And the boxes themselves can be used as additional supplemental information. But as Eileen said, I think it's true that you can read the whole thing without ever entering a box. And you basically, the fundamentals are presented, but the boxes just expand upon that. For example, hydraulic head, the same type of thing. There's been lots written about that, and Dave McWhirter and Eileen and I also prepared a box on that subject in quite some detail. So if you really want to dig down into the details, then you would go to the boxes.
Very good. So how, if people are willing to download the book? Well, we're reading a book that is an electronic book only, right? How can I go to the box, and how can I go back to the pages? Is this easy to navigate into the book?
Yeah, there's just a link right in the text, so they can just click on that. It takes them down to the box. They can read the box, and then at the bottom of the box, there's a link to return to where they began, where they entered the box from.
So it's quite straightforward. It's very easy. Very nice. So would you have something else to add to people who's willing to download your book? Please, now it's your chance.
I think, as Eileen has stated before, I mean, the whole purpose was to provide a basic groundwater text. And it doesn't have everything in it. It just talks about the properties of earth materials, and it also talks about groundwater flow. And there's a lot more to that than what we present, but the fundamentals are there. And we certainly hope that it will be adopted and used, and widely used, from everything from the public to the graduate students at the universities. So we're very, very interested to see how it is received.
And we hope if they enjoy it, they will spread the word. They will send the links around to their social media pages or to their colleagues and share the fact that the book is out there and available to them.
It's very good. I have some questions for you guys that are not exactly related to the book, but it is. What if someone like here in Brazil or anywhere else in the world would like to translate the book? Would they have to pay for the rights, or how would that work? They can connect to you and translate the book and distribute through the Groundwater Project. Is that possible?
Yeah, within the Groundwater Project, they can take the book that's in English now and translate it into whatever language they would like to, and then distribute that along with our book on the Groundwater Project pages.
They don't have to pay the rights then.
We hope they do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the concept of the translation is we're all looking forward to. I think it all passes through the Groundwater Project, and they will help with arranging that and managing that as far as those translations.
Okay, so if you're watching this video and you're willing to translate into your own language, we do appreciate this work, and we'll help distribute that into your own language. Please feel free, contact us, and we'll get that done. More than that, we have another suggestion that we were talking about before. What if someone has a suggestions about an illustration? Could they suggest and send to the authors an illustration that they think would fit in a new edition, for example?
Yeah, we welcome everybody's ideas. There's only so many emails I can read in a day, but that
Yes.
many suggestions.
What we suggest is that if someone has a very nicely done, not an idea, but a nicely done finished illustration, they can post on our social media pages, and we can get an evaluation for public before it goes to the final publication. That's a way to go. And then submit to the authors, because then we'll be tested. That's a way to go. Or if you think it's so good, you can send to us and we will evaluate ourselves to go to the next edition. Is that okay for you guys?
Sounds good.
Sure, I think the challenge is that all the illustrations are all free to the public. So anything that would be suggested would have to be without any strings attached. It would be able to enter into the Groundwater Project, and it would be part of that project. And so the ownership of it, in a sense, gets complicated, but it would be part of the Groundwater Project, area. So I think that some of those details probably need to be worked out before.
Yes, what we do is the authors, even the author of the illustration, keeps the right on the illustration, but the distribution has to be done through the Groundwater Project. That's it. So he is the author of whatever's, like you guys are the authors and have the rights on your book, but the distribution is through the Groundwater Project. Okay, so it will be the same for illustrations. So I don't think we have a problem with copyrights, because they will keep their rights. So that's the idea. But then it will be good that you accept new suggestions. Not only for that, but well, if someone has a very nice exercise that he thinks it fits the book, could be suggested as well. Don't you think?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. So guys, nice talking to you. If you have something else to finish, please can give a final statement to finish this nice interview, please.
Well, I think that the groundwater project is a monumental task, and it's tremendous sort of insight, and people should realize that it's all volunteer. So all this work that's going on, and there will be tens of thousands of hours put in these books to basically try to provide educational material free of charge on groundwater to educate the citizens of the world. And I think that there should be a tremendous amount of credit and praise to the folks that are involved in managing and running this project and trying to get all of this work done in the next 5 to 10 years. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I think that, you got to realize this is all volunteer. There's, all the productions of these materials are being done out of the time of the people who are authoring the materials. And I think that's wonderful. And there's a tremendous amount of people involved in this around the world. And that's really exciting.
Thank you very much. Eileen.
No, I think Bill said it all there.
Yeah, that was lovely. That was lovely. Thank you very much, Bill. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Congratulations for a wonderful job. And we'll do our best to distribute the book, because it's a very good book, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a tremendous success. Thank you very much.
Nice to talk with you.
Thank you, guys. Very nice.
Hello.
Bye-bye.